All right, welcome to another episode of Private Practice Practically. On today's show, we have a very, very special guest, Craig Polsfuss. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Rich.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, Craig. Really appreciate you coming on. And for those of us that don't really know a whole lot about you or what you do, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll give you a little bit because I'm more interested in sharing what I've come to know. So my background, I'm a Minnesota psychologist in practice almost 50 years now. Great privilege to be a part of a new evolution in the field that I'm expecting we'll talk more about here. That's very exciting, and I think will speak to the hearts of many psychologists. And I've had years of experience applying it from therapy with individuals and couples and addictions, mental health, to personal growth, performance, coaching, executive coaching, leadership development. In fact, I'm published in a couple of journals applying this new model to leadership and high performance. So that's been my passion since I was 28 years old when I kind of had a big wake up and got connected with this.
Wow. Yeah. So many threads to pull on there, Craig. I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that wake up, what that entailed, and then maybe we can get right into the model.
Okay, this is where we're going to really engage people or really turn them off. So this could be several podcasts. The essence of it was, I believe at the core of every human being is this passion to know what life is about, and not just intellectually know it, but understand it and live the full potential that's in us. And we don't even think of it that way. As a kid, we just feel this feeling to go out and play, and learn and grow and make it through whatever we make it through. And we know we start to learn some of it's not going to feel too good, right? So I think that's in everyone. And I was in touch with that as a kid, and it really motivated me. And that drove me past I did very well in school. I had, if I would say so myself, I could have a girlfriend pretty much when I wanted. I could, had friends and sports and success in education and my work. But by my early 20s, it was just like, wait a minute, there's something in me that just doesn't seem to be able to be quenched by these things on the outside, or just temporarily, right? And I thought that thirst inside of me was like a flaw, because I just couldn't seem to find the answer. But then, the saying, when the student's ready, the teacher or the teaching appears. My antenna were up. So I started noticing people and resources that spoke to that. And that started going, it stayed psychological in a lot of ways, but it opened up the spiritual too. And just for our use, my working definition of spiritual is the dimension of human life that's real but formless. And when I explain that to my clients through the decades, I've had zero, even confirmed atheists disagree with it, because why don't I do it right now? So those that might resonate with people. Oh yeah, there's a dimension of us that's real but formless, right? But if someone's like, well, prove it, what do you mean? One of my favorite examples is I'll ask, well, do you have a mind? And everybody goes, yes. And do you have a sense of it being there? Yeah. And do you use it sometimes? Yeah, I overuse it. And do you notice when you use it, it has anywhere from a little effect to huge effects? Like a huge effect would be you choose this job over that job, or you choose to stay on the road or go over the cliff. I mean, it can make a dramatic difference what you choose in your mind. And I go, yeah. So then I'll ask, well, what's the shape of your mind? What's the density of your mind? Where are the edges to your mind? And everybody, they go, well, there isn't. So there's a dimension of you that's real. You know it. It's powerful, and you're using it all the time. And it's so organic and close, so to speak, we forget it. it's like we get so wrapped up in the rest of it. Here's another way I'll point to it. We have physical eyes that look out and have a visual field, and we get so wrapped up in the visual field, we seldom stop and go, what's looking through my eyes? And we stop and reflect, and that's sometimes called going within or reflecting. And we reflect back, and when we do it properly, we get a sense of, oh yeah, and who and what is that? Well, that's me. But that's me at a deeper level than I'm usually operating from, because I'm out there in all the details, right? So this points to a whole new paradigm that opens up for our field. And that's my passion, to share a little bit of it here, and then in any other opportunities that may open up. Whether I'm open to getting clients, but I'm more interested in speaking and presenting about this, frankly, around the world.
Wow, yeah, that's so interesting, Craig, and I think, the example that you use about, like, where are the edges? As you're asking, like, what are the dimensions? How do they, like, where, and it's so true, it's, like, hard to kinda pinpoint that, but it's inside of us, and we have this awareness of it. Can we dive into the model itself and how you've, used it in your work?
Sure. But what I'm going to do is respond there to your energy first, and it'll be a good transition, because you kind of perked up, which is me too. I got perked up saying it. And it's like, yeah, let's just touch on that. No edges to our mind. Well, this mind that we're talking about isn't the mind we created through our education and conditioning, is it? That we learned that, we constructed that, and that's our rational mind. And it's a wonderful tool to use in our lives to navigate a world of time, space, and matter. But we get innocently seduced into thinking that's me and that's my mind and that's my greatest asset, rather than, no, what is that power that I've been all along that was able to construct that? What is that power that is beyond the rational, where I get life intelligence or wisdom, and it just shows up and it brings in energy? When you get an insight, you kind of go, oh, there's an uplift to it. That's what I'm talking about. That's been in us. And I didn't even answer your original question. So I followed that until I found people, and then one person in particular who was speaking about that, and it just to make the story short, it sparked what I needed, and I realized it. I realized it from inside of myself. All the great masters throughout history have said that what you're looking for is inside of you. And I was raised Christian. Christ said it a few ways, but one of the ways is he said, the kingdom of God is within you. And seek to know that first and foremost, and then everything else will kind of harmonize, right? Fall into place. So I had that embedded in me already. And I realized that so many people who were well-intentioned and going in that direction stopped short, because it was just too amazing of a possibility that you could go all the way into that. Not just, wow, this is great, and then someday when I die and go to heaven, then it'll be all, it's like, no, we can have that, what some people would call heaven, that kind of awareness and experience here now. Because here it's philosophical. When we step back and look at it, there is only now, and there's always only been now. So the heaven we're looking for must be here now. And if I'm not experiencing it, why not? And where is it? Oh, and we look wherever we do, fame, fortune, whatever it is, and those have their rewards, and they're not bad or wrong. It's just, you can't get from the outside what you've already got behind your eyes.
Ooh,
right?
wow. Great.
So this new model of psychology, it's beyond psychology. It's just an understanding. It's called the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, which we can talk about. Those, I said earlier, I think that there's 2 pieces to this breakthrough. One is, there's very simple but powerful, knowing who we are and knowing the power we have and are, and we're using those powers, mind, consciousness, and thought, always And as a result of it, we're experiencing the reality we're experiencing. We're experiencing and we're feeling our own thinking. We think, like I'm here in Minnesota, I'm looking out my window. It's late February. We've had some warmer days, so the snow isn't totally gone. So there's patchy snow and then there's grass, and I live in a kind of rural area, and there's trees and sky and all that, and it's very pleasant. And before I knew this, I'd think, God, it feels good to live here, and that scene is just making me feel good. Now I can still have that. I don't have to drop that, but it's like when it helps me, I remember I'm feeling good that way because of how I'm looking at it. Right?
Wow.
I could look at it right now, the exact same physical scene, and in my head be going, God, when spring comes, that lawn is really going to need a lot of work. And then I create a whole nother experience for myself. And in innocence, if I'm suffering, I think it's because the lawn needs more work. I don't think it's because of what I've done. So this switches us from being psychological victims. Whatever life throws at me, I have to feel, to creators. Like I have a choice in me that I can remember through this kind of a conversation and reflection to give life to certain thoughts and not to others. Again, a little Christian background, and I don't push Christianity in a traditional sense. Learn to take every thought captive. There are certain thoughts that will not serve you and aren't aligned with the way life works. And then there are those that, and you have the wisdom in you to recognize those. And as you need to in moments, you choose. And we learn how to be better and better and better at that. Does that give you a feel kind of for the perspective I'm bringing?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Please keep going, Craig. I'm fascinated by your work.
Me too, because see, when I do this, I'm not, maybe I hope it shows that I'm not like in my head preaching about something I've preached about for 40 years and I'm just giving another canned version of it. It's fresh, it's alive, we're fresh, we're alive. And that's, and it's not, see, it can sound like a positive philosophy. Let's all get positive and let's all remember that life is a blessing and let's think positive. And I would say for sure, that's not it, but that's better than being in the negative state. Like if your philosophy is life sucks and then you die, it's like, okay, if the best you can do right now is shift to the positive thinking, go ahead. But this points us out of our thinking and into our innate knowing. When we were little babies on the journey to create our ability to think, we just somehow knew. We hadn't yet created a way to think, oh, I figured out, now I got to figure out how to walk. Now I got to figure out how to talk. We weren't in our head. We were constructing our head, our neurology. And that was guided by this deep, innate, no edges, intelligence. And one more thought about exciting. Maybe I'm too hyped about it. What no edges means, no limits to the intelligence of life that's available and to the power that's available to us to at least get through a difficult time, if not turn it into gold, turn that lemon into lemonade, turn whatever into huge opportunity. I mentioned before we started recording that the range of my work, and I work with executives and business owners, and I just flashed to this one business owner where we're about 12, 13, maybe 14 months into working. And he first came to me about his personal stress, as a therapist. And he's been very open. I'm not going to give his name, even though he'd let me. And there came that point where he got so blown away and changed so much. He wanted me to come into the company and start sharing it with his top managers, the top 20 managers and all that. And I started to do that. And about 13, 14 months in, we had this conversation, and it was all organic. There was no plan like, hey, Craig, will you come in and help us produce this huge return on investment, or create better teamwork. And that was all kind of implied, but it was just, let's just go with this and see where it goes. And I said, well, let's take a minute, and if we looked at this in a practical business way, what's the return on investment so far? And he went, well, there's this and blah, blah, blah. And then there's this. And he went through maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 things that came to his mind. And he said, that's about $700,000 return on investment.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just like, I said, we've got to start writing this stuff down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Dang. Yeah. Craig, wow, that's just fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about the model itself and how you applied it? Like, what were some of the things that you worked on, maybe in that particular example they gave with that executive? Maybe like 1 or 2 little tidbits of what you did specifically.
You mean on a behavioral type level?
Yes.
What did I do? So it generally, even though I said I want to be on stages, and it's true, the actual work of it is best. It's individuals. Not in the sense that I have to work with the individual. I have colleagues who have this understanding and are out there working and sharing it in their own ways. But it's so I would meet with you, and obviously you're clicking with something. You have an interest, so then I just click into that, get to know you better. We both clarify what's your best vision of what you'd like out of our time together. And then we get that clear. So, because the mind then gets naturally, the personal mind gets engineered towards, well, we're doing that. We're not just getting together to have these kind of fun talks, although they are that way. There's a reason, and then whatever that may be. I want to understand this more, because I have too much stress. It can be from a negative side. I have too much stress. I'm confused. My relationships just don't seem to go well. Or it can be from, God, my life, I've had this and it's great. My life, I'm a very successful executive. My life is going great, but I know there's more. And I'm always looking for what's the breakthrough, what's the leading edge. And when I heard you and about this, I had to check it out. And then, so I'll meet with the person, we'll establish rapport and clarity about the goals, and then a few action steps around, well, what are we going to physically do to help you reach your goal? And that always involves basically 4 things. One is meeting like this, and almost all my work is now virtual. For one-on-ones, let's put it that way. The second is there's some really nice materials, written and recorded materials, that are good introductory materials that will really give a person a feel for it. And I always emphasize, if you're going to study these, don't study them like an academic book where you got to learn the terms and how do you apply it and all that analytically. It's more they should reflect the insight I'm talking about from a different angle, and through a different story or different personality that the author is. And so you're just listening out of interest to see if it's going to spark an insight, and it does, and it keeps sparking insights. And of course that keeps opening in and we've all heard the saying, you can't unsee what you've seen. So the more that happens, we can forget it a little, but a part of us is more awake to it, and we'll notice it again quicker and quicker, and it sticks more and more. And that's the process way back for me that stuck more and more and more. And then there's a tipping point in us that we're organically, biologically, psycho-spiritually made for, that when that happens, that's when a person says, I realize who I am. I realize the purpose of life. I found it. I could die in peace. Oh. And then when you don't die physically, it's like, what am I going to do now? And I went through a period there. It was like, well, what do I do now? It's like, And what was so beautiful, out of my heart came like, well, what do you, in your heart of hearts, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
And it sounded like an odd, novel question to me. Like, you mean I get to have a say in it? Because I had been kind of, I guess, subjecting myself to all the conditioning I got, right, from my family. And that wasn't it, it was all well intentioned, you know. And then it's like, oh, I get to choose. I am the chooser. And I have been all along. I just didn't realize it. So now there's a joy that you remember your freedom. You remember who you are. You remember, you know, something that you can't put into words, that absolutely, like when I meet with my clients, some are in very, very low, troubled psychological states. And I'll give a quick little example. I always see them, and this is not a strategy or technique. It's what happened since that awakening in me. I see them as there's nothing wrong with them. It doesn't mean I don't see what their depression and their confusion and their this and that, all that. I see all that, but I see through it to the person that is innately healthy and has the innate capability to integrate that and to wake up from that and move on developmentally, evolutionarily, to what the power of life created them for. So I just meet them where they're at, and I'm undaunted by their troubles. And I even had, when I started like decades ago, one of the first women I worked with that did this, she was a nurse. And after 2 meetings or maybe 3, she said to me, you know, and that was back in person. She said, Craig, I almost didn't come back. And I was surprised because I thought it went so well. And I said, well, why? And she said, you just, you just wouldn't believe I'm hopeless. And we never had a conversation about, she's going, I'm hopeless. And I'm going, I don't accept that. Never. But she could just tell she was doing that story and I wasn't buying into it. And then she thought, oh, and then she came back anyway. And then sure enough, you know, beautiful healing and changes happened. And so there's one of the big lessons. What you relate to, you reinforce. So what if if we're over relating to the pathology, we're innocently reinforcing it. If we're looking at the pathology to have an understanding and compassion and rapport, good, but then what is it that we pay more attention to? And it gets to these, and I'll answer your question now. So those 3 principles are mind, consciousness, and thought, are just a spectacular, non-religious, yet spiritual, you know, dimension of life that's real but formless, language that can easily be integrated into the field of psychology. So these 3 principles are really one singularity of existence, but they contain each other, so to speak. So it's a triunity, not just a triangle or 3 separate things. So let's start with mind. That's the term we use, although we're free to use any terms we want, but those of us who use the 3 principles model tend to use mind, consciousness, and thought because the founder who sparked all this talked about it this way. So mind is the power of existence itself. There's existence, and we know it. And if we reflect on it, we know it because we go, oh, you know, you can see in that person, you can see that they're alive and now they died, and there's something gone there, and their body still exists, but there's something, right? So when we were born, we came into existence and we became conscious of it in that pretty spectacular, precise way. And that's the energy and intelligence of existence itself. So it's not limited to Craig and Craig's body and Craig's training, and it includes all that. But I didn't have any of that all the way back. It's the existence that was able to have a world and have a human body that I could be born into. So that's incredibly powerful. Like, that's that awesome, like, oh my gosh. But when a person has an open mind and an open heart, they'd go, yeah, well, okay. And it's very simple. It's isness. It just is. Okay. So within that formless, it's the energy intelligence of all that is formed and formless together. Because formed is simply, as I understand it and see it, the formless taking form, right? It's not like two separate things. Although if we think of it that way, it'll look like, oh, it's two separate things. And that's okay until it gets in your way, right? When you realize, oh, I have a formless intelligence that I can put into form in my thinking and in my consciousness that can improve the decisions I make, give me a more compassionate heart, a more positive attitude, whatever it would be. So that's mind. So consciousness, and I could go way deep into these principles. Consciousness is the aspect or ability of that universal mind to know and experience. So it's consciousness knowing. And like, so when we put our attention on our conversation here, we're experiencing it. If, as we're doing this, I got all interested in what am I going to have for lunch? And I started thinking about that. And I'm pointing that way because that's where my kitchen is. The more I got into that, guess what would happen? What would be real to me was I'm in the kitchen, I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat, and you and this session would start to fade out, right? Mm-hmm. Even though physically it's here. So it's like, oh, we have this power of consciousness, and it's like an Aladdin's lamp almost. It's like wherever we put it, it's like a magic paintbrush. It brings alive what we're putting that consciousness on. And then when you turn it on itself, that's what the three principles work does. It's like, what if we turn that and look back inside with that power and that consciousness? So that's very simple and inadequate, but that's for now. And then thought is, well, what is it that's brought to life as an experience? Thought is the power of that mind to choose, to create. You could call it free will, or you could call it thinking. And it's not just, conventional psychology might talk about or think about thinking as an active thing we do in our head. I think about what I'm going to do about the yard in the spring. And yes, that's a part of thinking, but thinking goes way further upstream. And there's where we start to say, well, there is subconscious or unconscious thought. There's stuff going on that has a big influence. And then that opens, well, I had a really interesting insight there that could open up something, but doesn't fit here. So when we see, like I said earlier, my life isn't something happening to me from the outside in. It's an inside out projection, instantaneous, seamless, and the ultimate simulator. It looks and feels absolutely real. And I'm not saying don't think the bus coming at you crossing the street isn't real. Get out of the way. But when you realize we live in two worlds simultaneously, the world of form and the world of formless, matter, spirit, the projector and the projection. And when we realize it's not only in my living in and experiencing a projection of my own thinking, I'm the originator of that. And way, way, way back, it's an amazing me that I barely know. And the more I can go deep into that, you just feel amazing. You feel you're coming home, deep peace, deep joy, deep confidence, calm in your own, comfortable in your own skin. There's all what kinds of ways to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, oh yeah, go ahead. Keep going, Greg. Sorry.
No, that's good.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, as you were talking about the clients who kind of steadily build and build and build until they realize that they've achieved this new level of awareness, if that's even the appropriate word to use, maybe a new identity. It just reminded me of just being reborn in a way. It's
Yeah.
just like you went in and now you're out and you're a whole different person. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's what you hit on there is so one of the most important things, because most of us on the planet, it appears, are living in their identities that they created. We made it up. We grew up and went, oh, I'm smart, I'm stupid, I'm attractive, I'm lovable. No, I'm not. Right. And we created an identity and we held it in our head. And then we've tried to fulfill it and serve it. And that's called ego. And that's where we get egoistical. But it's like it's an illusion of who we really are. It's just a thought of who we think we are. Who we are is the one making that up. And maybe falling and us falling asleep in our own dream. But when the thirst inside that inspired me and bothered me so much when I was young, that's my best friend. I realized it wasn't a flaw. It was saying, wake up, remember who you really are. And then you can have this life that I've made for you and that you want more than you realize. And then this is one of the big things that then once that flip happened in me, of course, there was this joy in me that I just wanted to share it, right? The nature of love is to give itself away. And when you flip into this, you fall in love with yourself and everything and everyone. And that doesn't mean some weird hippie concept of love. It's deeper, and we could go into that another time. But that's what led me then to meet Mr. Sidney Banks, who was the original founder of the Three Principles understanding, because he was an ordinary welder who had this kind of awakening. And then he realized what he called mind, consciousness, and thought. And as he shared that and people listened, just by you sitting there listening, you're experiencing something, aren't you? You're feeling something. And that alone, that's it. That's it. And the more you're awake to that, well, that's going to be there even when we're not talking here, right? So you're going to be awake. It's kind of so it is a new identity of going on, whether it's little by little or with Sid Banks, it was all at once. It went bam. And his old identity dropped. And he said, I died, but I didn't die. In Christianity, they say you need to become born again, die to the old self. There's a lot of that metaphor in lots of systems in human history. And it's like, yeah, there's an us in there. And with what's going on in the world now, the need is more clear than ever, isn't it? That we need to get out of the old system. Some people call it the matrix, right? The projection. It's trying to control us. Well, okay, yes, for now. It's actually, again, it's our projection. And if we're projecting that it's trying to control us, then it'll look and feel that way. But once we wake up, the jig is up. The jig is up. It's like if you fall back into that, you realize, and you just naturally, instinctively go to that awareness and that power that says, well, don't give that thought life. A more traditional psychologist might say, well, that's denial. And it's like, no, you could be. It could also be wisdom. Test it out and see what comes of it.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting, Greg. for that, going back to that client that you work with, the executive who went back and he said, "Hey, yeah, 700 grand is or I think it was 700 or 500, one of those two numbers, in ROI." Um, what was it about him that, or her, I don't know if it was male or female, but
Man.
what was it about the executive that that or how did he operationalize this new insight, this new the expansion in consciousness? I don't know the right lingo, right? But the
Right.
new form of himself into this work that he was living in the present reality, or at the time, that reality.
To keep the story short,
Yeah.
um, I think right off the bat, he was one of the most sincere, open-minded people. He was a multimillionaire at the time I met him.
Hmm.
He was kind of looking to maybe get out of the business, but he also cared greatly. It was his father's business before him.
Gotcha.
Cared for the employees, had core values all over the business of that were all these positive things, and he really wanted to live it and did his best to live all that. But he knew he was suffering inside with what at the time he called stress. And when I started to share this with him, literally in the first session, I remember his face on the screen like this, and probably for the last half of the session, he was sitting there like this with his mouth open, just like, and I
What?
could tell he was just really getting hit. And he goes, "This is so different than anything I've ever, any counselor I've ever gone to, and I want to learn more. What do I do?" And
Hmm.
then I let the wisdom guide. I can say, well, you do this and this and this, and through 40 years, 50 years of doing this, it's going to be, there's an understanding in that, but I let the wisdom guide me as I go. So it's like, well, let's meet again, and
Hmm.
let's. And usually at the beginning, people like him, they don't want to wait a week, So we start to meet, and the more you get exposed to it, the more the experience, the more it sticks, the more the awakening. Then you get more insight. Then it hit him like, oh my gosh, I'm changing so much, and people are telling me this. This guy went off of ADHD medication about a year in. He didn't even tell me he was on it. And he said, I don't think I need to be on it. And I said, oh, are you on it? And he said, yeah. Well, he went off it and didn't need it anymore. So um, he was changing so much. He thought, I got to get this into my company somehow. And he had his 5 top executives. The HR guy was the most kind of open-minded, creative guy. And he goes, I'm going to ask Andy if he'll meet with you. And I said, okay. So we met, and it clicked with him, and then didn't click with a lot of people. They all come in from their own place, but those who are the most open-minded, open-hearted, and know that life is for more than just making money and getting the job done and going home and having a beer. And if that's where you're at, that's fine. I don't judge that, but it's the others that are going to be more open, like those therapists out there right now that go, I came into this field to really help people, and it came from my heart, and me too. I wanted to learn for myself too. And there were a few times where I was ready to leave the field because what the field gave me at the time was so inadequate.
Mm.
But I went with it anyway. And then sure enough, and here it's like, wow, I hope this doesn't sound judgmental, because there's a lot of value out there in the conventional. There's good-hearted therapists doing a lot of amazing things, but this understanding, it expands it. It doesn't destroy it. It expands the perspective and the power of what we can do. So back to that man, it was just his sincerity and openness,
Mm.
and then so we met with his one, executive, and then it kind of spread, and the word's starting to get out, and then another, and then it's like, well, we've got these 20 top managers. Maybe we could do something with all of them. And then there were certain key employees. It just like as we go, the insights would show us.
Mm.
Oh yeah, so and so there. Now they're really troubled, but they're not open-minded. So
Oh.
let's wait. But they're troubled and open-minded, or they're not troubled but open-minded. So it
Hmm.
was kind of that where the tentacles of the light could shine,
Yeah.
and it's there's a wisdom to that. But I've also learned that, okay, it does take, I could outline structurally, and I do in some training and teaching. First step is this, second stage is this, third stage is this. But it's, then you don't want to impose that on the process. The process is living. It's a living thing, and you respond to it.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Craig. And I really do want to dive in more information, or to get more information and learn more about this model, because it sounds really interesting. And just hearing the feedback from your clients and what they've experienced, and just the benefits of it just fascinates me as a clinician, where I'm like, tell me more. Like, how are you helping these people? And tell me more about
I
this
get
thing,
that.
right?
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
speak- can we talk about your book for a second, Craig? Is that okay with you? Can I bring
Yep.
that up?
Yep. And okay, this part we might have to take out of the recording.
Yep.
I have a session in 8 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah.
hoping to keep it quick. Is that okay? Like
Okay,
3 or
so
4
we'll wrap
minutes?
up in 5 seconds here, or well, not 5 seconds, but 5 minutes maybe.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. You can see I wrote a book. It became an Amazon #1 bestseller a year or so ago. Reality Shattering Insights: Begin Life's Journey. Explore the proven human ability to completely transform in an instant. And that's what happened to me. And that's what happens to many, many people. And it can be, it's not always complete transformation, but significant, right? That a significant healing or change, spontaneous remission from cancer has been documented, right? So there's that power in a human being. And that, so I introduce that and explore that in that book. And it's the first of 4 books. The second book goes deep, and it's not published yet, but it goes deep into the psychology I just talked to you about, the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. The third book goes into a step even beyond that, where reflecting on those truth life principles automatically draws you back inside from a place where you can live that awareness and power more. But there's a point and a way to completely invert inside if that attracts, if you're interested in that. And so I talk about that. And then the fourth book is kind of, if you've been with me this far, where do we go from here to, because it's probably in every one of your hearts to share this with as many people as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When do you think book number 2 is gonna get published, Craig? Any idea?
You know what? That first book is self-published and cooking along, but I decided to pause and hopefully find a traditional publisher. So maybe through working with you or through these podcasts I've been doing, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just exploring that.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I can't give you a date on that.
Got it. Got it. Well, hopefully it's soon, and everything aligns, and somebody picks it up, because it sounds just fascinating. Craig, if people are watching this episode and it resonates with them, they want to reach out, maybe work with you a little bit more closely. How can they reach out?
So craigpolsfuss.com, www.craigpolsfuss.com is a simple little website I have. You can reach me through that, or you can email me at craig@craigpolsfuss.com. And grab the book too, because that'll give you more of kind of what you're getting here. I put in there 14 reality shattering insights that when people look into them, many people definitely shift. And I just thought of one, and I wish we had time to talk about it, but maybe that's another time.
Yeah, Craig, thank you so much for taking some time and being on the show today. Fascinating material. And maybe we could do it again in the future. How does that sound?
I'd love it. Sure.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Craig. Signing out,
Thanks,
everybody. Thanks
Ed.
for joining us. Yeah, bye.